Hello, my friends. We are back for episode 3. It just keeps getting better and better. I can't believe we're getting close to halfway through the season. I don't know where you are in the world, but over here in New York, we are gearing up for the impending snowstorm, and I kind of wish we just had the whole season to binge, but it's kind of the perfect time also if you're new to start watching, to do a big rewatch while we're all tucked into our houses away from the cold. Okay, so let's jump right into episode 3. We start out with Lucy waking up to her alarm clock. This show the writers love a waking up scene. But you know what they also love, clearly, a nightmare scene, because I realized pretty quickly that this is a dream that Lucy's in. You know why? Because she's wearing her shirt from episode 1. Now, if you remember, I think it was in season 1 towards the end of it. No, it might have been season 2 when Stephen was coming back around to Lucy. He had this dream of being at the night of the Macy incident, and Lucy coming in, being the one to tell Stephen everything's okay and to move Macy's body. And you know what's significant? She was in this blue button-down shirt, which is what she was wearing on her first day freshman year when she first exchanged eyes with Stephen and then later met him that night. And so in that moment, I think Lucy represented this, he was imagining her as this innocent, naive Lucy that he used to know. I think part of it is that we know Stephen, he gets bored of these relationships because he's just that kind of guy. And so I think it's the romanticization of that first Lucy that he knew and him trying to remember that Lucy and not who she is now. So what happens in this nightmare for Lucy is she wakes up to her alarm, Bree's at her dorm door saying, "What are you doing?" And then, so Lucy gets up, she's like, "What's going on?" She looks around the hallway, she comes back to bed, and then when she's in bed, she turns over, and who's there but Evan, shirtless, and what does he say? He says, "Everyone can see you," which is obviously trying to show that Lucy feels like she has this stain on her that's visible. She has this secret, but she's carrying all this shame, and she feels like she has, a scarlet A on her shirt. If we think back to Stephen's dream/nightmare with this freshman version of Lucy, this could also be Lucy remembering that innocent version of herself. I mean, she wasn't completely innocent at the time, but it's still before the worst parts of her life. Well, actually, it's not the worst parts of her life, but this awful period of her life happened. And, I mean, she was changed forever once with the situation with her mother, but I think she's still remembering some kind of somewhat more innocent version of her before she felt like she was a bad person. That was a huge theme in season 1, the idea of a good person versus a bad person. So just, I mean, we see that her guilt is eating her alive. Also, did anyone else laugh at first when Evan came on? I don't know why I laughed at first when he turned over. I was like, that was a jump scare. Usually it's a Stephen jump scare, but when Evan turned over, he's like, "Everyone can see you." I kind of laughed. Oops. Lucy heads right across campus to her counselor. She shows up at 9 on the dot to discuss doing some work abroad, which honestly, fantastic idea. Junior year's coming up, like, everyone needs to go abroad. They all have to go. So first, the counselor says, "I've been thinking about you," because as we know, the counselor was there and involved in the discussions about Lucy's accusations. And then, so Lucy brings up that she wants to go abroad, do this writing program in Spain, to which the counselor replies that, she didn't know that she wanted to do that. And Lucy's like, "Yeah, I know I didn't, but I've been thinking." And, I mean, again, that's another consequence we can see of her relationship with Stephen, where she puts these things off, and then once he breaks her heart again, she realizes, I should have done that. For example, the trip to India over the summer. And the counselor unfortunately says, the deadline is passed, but that she can try to get her materials in. And she can try and submit her still, even though she missed the deadline. Ooh, and it's kind of tough because I think the counselor is partially, I think a lot of why she's doing this is because heard the story. She heard Lucy's accusations. And so she's figuring this girl has had such an awful time on campus. Like, I will do what I can to help her get into this program. No wonder she missed the deadline. She must be traumatized, which she is traumatized, but just not in the way she knows. She knows about this from a complete lie. So, I mean, that just fuels the fire in that whole lie. Then we get a cute moment because I think the writers are trying to not have it be so depressing all the time, which is good. We need some moments of hope and tenderness. So we see Pippa and Diana in Diana's bed, waking up the next morning. They're not like cuddling or anything. They're just sleeping next to each other. But they wake up, they start laughing so hard. Pippa's like, I can't breathe. Diana's like, yeah, maybe that's because you slept in jeans. You know, if you sleep in jeans, that's crazy. So it seems like they just had a nice night together and maybe like fell asleep talking. It's very sweet. Wrigley comes up in the conversation. And they have to have a talk about that because they say, you know, they both don't want to hurt Wrigley, which, I mean, that's what they're doing. It's a very tough situation. You know what I kept thinking? I don't know if anyone else has thought this. Remember at the end of last season when Pippa essentially comes out to Wrigley and says, I have a crush on a girl? Like, has Wrigley not brought that up and said, oh, who's that girl? Do you still like? Like, I guess he probably just forgot everything. But I kept thinking about that because, I mean, at least she talked about that before everything happened with him. So they end up just deciding to see how things go, take it slow, go from there. Pippa leaves, and then there's a weird moment. Diana goes to the bathroom to brush her teeth, but before she can, she stops. She looks like she's going to pass out or something, and then it seems like she runs to the toilet, the bathroom, whatever, into the next room. Okay. I saw some spoilers, and I think I understand what they're trying to allude to here. So skip about 30 seconds ahead if you haven't seen episode 4 and you don't want any spoilers. But, so spoiler right here. They're trying to implicate that she's having morning sickness, that she's pregnant. What are we doing with this? Also, I'm trying to calculate. 9 months ago. Oh, yes, she was. Was she with Steven 9 months ago? I guess it is only January. But yeah, that's crazy. Okay, spoiler is now over. But yeah, so they're trying to tease something going on with Diana, which is upsetting because she was just smiling, having this great moment, and now she is sick to her stomach. We'll see how that pans out. Now we see Wrigley and Evan walking on campus. Evan mentions that Steven slept over at his place last night, but then, like, suddenly disappeared before he could say anything in the morning. He also tells Wrigley that him and Lucy broke up and that he didn't seem well. And Wrigley's like, he'll be fine. He doesn't really feel things. Which, thank you, Wrigley, for clocking that, because we need to discuss that further. Both of them need to, I mean, I feel like Wrigley's kind of woken up to Steven's issues. And Evan has in some ways, but seems to brush it off more. I don't know. So Evan asks Wrigley how he is with Steven, how their relationship is after everything that happened last semester. And Wrigley kind of just wants to brush it off. He says sometimes it's just easier to be at peace with Steven. That seems to give Evan some kind of aha moment, or at least a moment where he's going over the fact that Steven has something over him and they're beefing. Wrigley asks about the ski party later. Evan says that he's meeting up with Molly before. And this is where we get into another discussion. We open a discussion about if Evan is really a good guy. Throughout season 1, that's who he was painted as. That's who we saw him as, the best of at least these guys, which, I mean, that doesn't say much. But we definitely saw him as somewhat of an upstanding moral character. Wrigley implies that he thinks Evan might be stringing Molly along. And Evan says, you know, I was upfront with her this time, so if she thinks anything else, that's on her. Partially, yes. But even though that would be on her, I think Evan's still aware of the fact that he would be hurting Molly, that Molly would be upset and sad. And it's just, that's such a Steven kind of idea. that I did not think that he would have. That's such a Steven way of thinking. I mean, I'm glad that the show is showing the consequences of continuing to be very closely friends with someone like Steven, because you can tell he's rubbing off on him. I mean, he listens to Steven. He listens to his advice for some odd reason. And you can see how that's influencing his mindset and his actions now. And Evan says, I'm tired of tiptoeing around everyone's feelings all the time. No one else does, for him. Wrigley seems a little perplexed. I think Wrigley understands where the moral issue is there. But yeah, it really shows kind of this change in Evan's mindset, that he wants to be putting himself first. It's, again, a very Steven mindset. Now the girls are getting ready for the party tonight, and they're discussing Oliver and the new girl Amanda, which I had a second. Bree saying, yeah, they're definitely hooking up. I had a second where I was like, is it possible that they're not? Is there any possibility that they're not? And like she misinterpreted something? Like, could it be someone else that Amanda's seeing? I don't know. And then Bree says that she's been starting to wonder. She sees Amanda, who is so vulnerable and insecure, weak and insecure, is what she says. And she keeps thinking that that's how Oliver saw her and why he went after her. And I'm thinking, yeah, that's clearly it. I mean, that's the whole point of that kind of relationship. It's about the power dynamic and finding someone young and weak and insecure who you can kind of prey upon. She's having this moment of realization where she has felt so bad for this girl and pitied her, but she's also kind of realizing that that girl is herself. And I'm telling you, these writers know how to drop something so serious and impactful and then make you laugh after, because Bree reveals that Amanda and Oliver started at the holiday party after Bree and Oliver in the laundry room, and I forgot Pippa doesn't know this, and Pippa was like, you what? And then we also get this very real moment of how friends would actually talk, because they start to discuss, oh, how can we get back at Oliver? Like, what should we do? We already ruined his car. Then they say, oh, you should tell him you're pregnant, and that leads into a conversation about how Lucy believes that she will have a boy because she has a certain sense for those things, and they start to come up with names for her future son. They land on the name Crispin and then take shots in honor of baby Crispy. I love how they're able to write these inside jokes for these characters. Like, I don't know if you noticed, which episode, was it this one or the last one, where they, in the Hulu description of the episode, they literally say, like, the Poussoirs take on blah, blah, blah. And it makes you feel like you're in this friend group because you're in on these inside jokes. And they seem authentic. Like, this seems like how friends would actually talk. The girls also mention how Lucy is so calm after the breakup, which is kind of awkward because we as the audience know why, and that she is a bit of a serial dater. Okay, then Wrigley comes in before the party. I guess to walk over with them, and he pulls out a huge bag of only pink Starburst, and I'm like, Wrigley and Pippa, if only you were alive now when you could see that Starburst makes the favorite Reds packs. You didn't have to do that on your own. But that is like the sweetest, most romantic thing. And I it's such a small detail, but it says so much about the characters. It made me, I smiled. Pippa smiled, I smiled too. Because it shows thoughtfulness, and it shows effort. He spent the time to do that. Just perfect moment. Well, not perfect moment because Diana and Pippa. But you know what I'm saying. Okay, next scene. You know how Evan's been saying that Steven just kind of like disappeared from campus? Guess where he is? We see him. He's in a bar. I guess he's downtown. He's in the college town. It's Max's restaurant. Are you kidding me? He's sitting at the bar, and he's calling someone repeatedly, even though it's going to voicemail. You know who it is? It's Sadie, his little sister. That was one of the best moments of last season. Seeing his sister realize who he actually is, because his sister is probably like the only person in the world that he actually treats well and treats them in a way that isn't selfish. He thinks about her before himself, I would say. And that's not true of anyone else in his life. So to finally be seeing that one person have their image of him shattered, it's very satisfying. I mean, obviously horrible for Sadie, but Max comes over, asks if he need anything. And Steven says, "You're Max, right?" Max is like, "Do I know you?" And Steven says, "Oh, my girlfriend and I used to come here a lot." Is Max pretending? I feel like Max was so down bad over Lucy that he would remember meeting Steven. But I also kind of love that he didn't remember, because that probably was an extra kick in the ego to Steven. Then his phone starts ringing. It's finally a call back from Sadie. But guess who picks up? It's Steven's mom. Remember Steven's mom? Yeah, so she says, "You need to stop. You're really freaking her out." He asks, "Why do you have her phone?" She says she's home from school. And she says she doesn't want to talk to you. She told her what happened. She also reveals that she's not in a great place at the moment. Her grades have been slipping. And thus, she lost part of her scholarship and might have to move back home. But the mom says, "Personally, I think that might be good for her." So, we have two interesting things going on in this conversation. I think it is both true that Sadie is a little bit scared of Steven, and her opinion has changed of him, and she clearly told her mom the story, and maybe does not want to talk to him currently. But we know that Steven's mom is still very mad at him, clearly, about getting her into this boarding school. So she has a bone to pick with him too, and she wants to keep Sadie close to her. I mean, that's also just because of her own personality issues. But I think it is both Sadie not wanting to talk to Steven and also the mom being manipulative and wanting her to come back home and be back in her space. Because she's very similar to Steven. She needs those people close to her. Like, towards the end, the mom says, "We've gotten a lot closer," which maybe is somewhat true. I think that could be somewhat true. But also, Steven says she loves that school. So, I mean, for Steven, this is upsetting to hear, which I do understand. And then Steven says, "Hey, Mom, can I come home from school for a few days? I'm actually not doing too well either." And she says no, pretty much flat out. I was wondering if Steven, I think that's partially true, but also, like, the last place he ever wants to be is home. He probably just wants to see Sadie and be able to get the last word and convince her that he is good. But also he seems kind of jealous, like, oh, look what his mom will do for Sadie, but he wants to come back home, and she says no. He's not doing well, but she says no. And he's going to use that because we know he likes to victimize himself. He will use that as saying, like, oh, my mom's so awful to me, when there is a reason why she wouldn't want him to come home, because of their past issues. What do you think? How did you interpret this phone call? Because I thought it was fascinating. I think their dynamic is really interesting, and I mean, obviously tells us a lot about Steven. And you can see the gears in his head turning after this call. He is so upset. He's fidgeting with a pen, and he does this look over at Max. What is he going to do with Max? What is he going to do to Max? He's so scary. I say this every time, but you can just see when his thoughts are going, like, I feel this way, I'm in pain, I've been rejected, whatever happened, what can I do to put this pain on other people? What can I do? Immediately, that's what his head turns to. Now we get to the ski party. It looks like so much fun. And shout out to the music supervisor of the show. I always think about this because I love their music choices. When I heard Feel Good by the Gorillaz come on at this moment, I was like, this is a great moment. This is great. The girls and Wrigley do a shot ski. He is one of the girls. I feel like in an ideal world, he is not friends with Evan or Steven. He never meets them. He literally is just friends with these three. I need the writers to also tell me how much is scripted. Because out of the girls in Wrigley, it's just some of their lines are so fun. Like, Evan shows up, he's in this interesting ski outfit, and Wrigley's like, "Did you just pull that out of your closet? Because it's sexy." And I'm like, yes, thank you, Wrigley. No fragile masculinity with Wrigley. Bree announces that Max is almost at the party. She says, for those people that don't know, well, because Lucy kind of jokes, "Oh, that's her drug dealer." And Bree's like, no, he's kind of my old foster brother. Evan seems to panic a bit internally. He's like, here? I mean, I think part of it is because he's wondering, is this a potential love interest for Bree that's going to take her away from him? Not that he has her. I also just noticed when Bree says, oh yeah, he's a grad student, Evan goes, wow. And he still looks unhappy. And I bet in his head he's thinking, Bree likes older men. She went after a 45-year-old. Of course she's going to like this guy who's a grad student and not me. So Molly shows up, and then Alex gets there. They talk a bit about how Alex immediately recognized Bree, and he said it was those dimples, which was really cute. But I was like, are they flirting? Is this a setup for Bree and Alex? Are we doing that? So of course Evan immediately says, I need to go find the bathroom. And he leaves. And Molly brings up Lucy and Steven's breakup again. Lucy kind of over-explains things, and then Alex says, you don't have to tell anyone if you don't want to. I don't know why he's interjecting into this and saying that. Didn't seem necessary to me. He's not, like, close with Lucy. But this will come up again later in the episode. Then we see Diana at the party. She looks so cute. I love this look on her. I remember seeing someone on Twitter say, like, she was giving Ariana, like, look at those doe eyes. It was very cute. But Wrigley picks her up and spins her. He's all excited to see her. And he puts her down right next to Pippa, which was funny. And they're very sweet and awkward. Lucy's getting a drink. And then Evan comes over and says, we need to talk. So this is the first time that they're, talking about the fact that Evan stupidly told Steven what happened. Evan says, look, I didn't think you guys were going to break up. Are you serious? I'm sorry, but are you that dumb? Didn't he know about what happened with Wrigley and Diana and how Steven reacted to that? And that was a long time ago. That was a longer time ago. Lucy says he's never going to let this go, and Evan responds, I just wanted to be honest. I feel like Evan's quote-unquote niceness is he hides behind this layer of honesty. It's interesting because I think the last episode, this one is called Repent. It's like he feels like if he just confesses, then he's fine. Like he just wants to be honest, and he thinks that makes him a good person, but he has still done all these things. Evan kind of turns it back on her, though, and says, don't forget that you were there that night, too. I'm Bree's ex. She doesn't want to get back together with me, but you're her best friend. Which, that is true. And even though Evan is kind of trying to get back together with Bree, he does have a point there. Lucy goes to a different part of the party. She sees Bree and Alex talking. They're talking about their different doomed relationships, as she says. And then Alex makes this statement. He says, no one will know each other here in 10 years. You know what I was thinking? We're in 2009, and then when we flash forward to the wedding, that's 2015. It's possible that in 10 years, this whole group stops having any contact with each other. He might have a point there, but then he says college is the most unserious part of your life, which it's good for these guys to put it into perspective, but I think Lucy and Steven have had some pretty serious moments in their college lives so far. Then we hear another kind of story from Alex that makes us feel bad for Bree, which I think it's not only us feeling bad for Bree, but Lucy in this moment and feeling that weight of her mistake. Lucy asks what Bree was like when she was little. He says she was actually very bossy. But Bree thinks, she says, what do you mean? I thought I'd barely talked. And he said, oh, that was later. Insinuating that maybe she was more outspoken, outgoing, and then I guess the life that she had, the way that she grew up, kind of beat her down. So she gets uncomfortable, says she needs to go to the bathroom, which leaves just Lucy and Alex to then start talking to each other. She addresses some of his previous comments and says, I actually can handle things. And they get into kind of this, tense conversation. It's not an argument, but it's somewhat passive-aggressive. We then learn in this conversation that Alex doesn't do relationships. He only is casual with other people. And that conversation keeps going. Alex makes a joke like, oh, do you want to hook up with me? Is that what you're saying? And it's like, I had a moment where I believed it. Lucy clearly believed it. Then he says, oh, I'm just joking. And I'm like, Lucy likes this guy. I don't know what's going on here. I mean, I think the girls were right and that she needs a break. Well, I guess Pippa did kind of say, like, find someone else. Casually. So, maybe it could be good for her. Honestly, she just needs to go to Spain. Go to India. Go anywhere but Baird. It is fun to watch. I don't know how this is going to pan out. I don't know why they're introducing this new character and what he's going to, like, serve as in this last season. But it is an interesting dynamic that I haven't seen with Lucy and anyone else yet. Bree sees Evan across the room, goes over to him and strikes up a little conversation with him. She brings up Molly and how Molly's so pretty. And then Evan says, yeah, she's gorgeous. But, I'd stop talking to her in a second if you told me to. Wow. I mean, as to Evan's point, he is being quote-unquote honest. But that was bold. I mean, I don't really like Molly, but poor Molly. Because that sucks. He adds, but you knew that already, didn't you? And Bree kind of smiles and smirks to herself. I think part of her feels powerful with Evan because she sees him. I mean, he was pining after her and kind of like begging for her back. And I think maybe now that she likes that he's still wanting her, especially in this state that she's in after Oliver. But yeah, then Evan goes over to Molly and starts kissing her. It's like, this is a weird situation. He gives Bree one last look back. And she doesn't seem as happy, but she seems like she's maybe just contemplating that idea. Would she want to give Evan the signal and say, I want you back? Bree spots Alex and Lucy talking. She goes over to Lucy. Alex walks away to take a call. And Bree kind of gives her the go-ahead. She says, do you like him? And Lucy tries to say, oh, no, he's your brother. That's so weird. I was shocked here at first that Bree was so supportive. I mean, she says, Pippa and I agree you should have some kind of rebound. And this is perfect because he wants something casual. But I started to think that they were going to set something up romantic for Bree and Alex. So I guess that's not possible anymore. That's not happening. Do you think that too? Is this just me? I mean, I guess they're trying to say that's weird because they kind of grew up together, but I thought they're not related. Like, I thought it could have been potentially a sweet story or relationship for Bree. I don't know. Back to Pippa and Diana. They discuss how Pippa feels a bit guilty, but it's really that she feels guilty for not feeling guilty enough. Ooh. Pippa compliments her, and then Wrigley walks in and initiates a game of beer pong. So, that was cute, but also there's a lot of tension underneath. Okay, we're back to Steven at Max's restaurant. And Steven says to Max, oh, actually, you do know my girlfriend, Lucy Albright. Poor Max has this moment of realization where he looks down. You can tell he's sad, even just like remembering Lucy. And also, I wonder if he's remembering Steven. Well, he didn't really know how bad Steven was. He didn't really know anything about Steven, I'm assuming. If I'm remembering correctly, like the things he knows about Lucy, he knows about her family history. But he met Steven just that one time that they very awkwardly ran into him. Lucy didn't even say, like, this is my boyfriend. Steven, being disgusting, goes, she's a real piece of shit, huh? And he looks so scary when he says it. And Max, of course, being kind and normal and respectful and a gentleman, says, you said she was your girlfriend? Right? He looks scary, but it seems that he has just had, well, it's not just that he's had too much to drink, but he is also drunk because when he asks for another glass, Max denies him and says, I think you're good on water. Max leaves, goes into the back, the kitchen. Steven looks really terrifying. He stares at him. I'm like, oh my gosh, what is he going to do? And then he gets up and he takes his tip. So, like a basic Steven a-hole move. He sucks. We say this every time, of course, but you just see how much he sucks in these little moments, you know? So, back to the frat party. Alex is leaving. He says to Bree, thanks for inviting me. And Bree's kind of like, oh, it's just a frat party. I was wondering for a second, too. I'm like, why would a grad student be at a frat party? But I guess Bree just thought it'd be a fun, social very relaxed way to just see him and catch up. Alex says good luck to Lucy when he leaves, which is really weird, but still she wants to go after him, so Bree encourages her to, and she does. She says, I'm coming back with you. They walk into Alex's front door, and before Lucy can even finish a sentence, he goes right after her, and they start making out. They move to the couch. It's getting hot and heavy, and then Alex gets a notification on his phone and picks it up and responds. And of course that makes Lucy question if he's actually into this. He says it was important and time sensitive, which, I guess it could be true based on his side hustle. So of course she asks, are you sure you want me here? So Alex says, it seems like you're the kind of person that needs a lot of reassurance right now, and I'm not that guy. Okay, true. And he kind of clocks her, he kind of reads her, because Lucy responds that you've been kind of mean to me, actually, and Alex replies, maybe you're looking for that, and she's like, why would I be looking for that? And he says, well, I don't know, you're the one who came home with me, who decided to come home with me, which, that's very true. That's very true, Lucy. That clearly leads to a moment of recognition for Lucy, and she gets up and leaves. Super awkward. Really awkward all around. It started out, honestly really steamy, and then just all the air got sucked out of the room. It seems to be the next morning, because it's light out. I don't know where Steven slept or what happened, but he walks into his dorm, Wrigley's there. He makes a comment, he looks at the trash can, and he says, did you eat 500 Starburst? And Wrigley says, no, it was an inside joke. With Pippa. Yeah, Steven, get that correct. Steven starts talking about his mom. He's trying to pull out his typical victim card. He says he spoke to my nightmare of a mother, same as usual. Oh, but you wouldn't understand that because you have normal parents. And I am so proud of Wrigley here because he responds and he says, I don't know, dude, I don't think you can play that card anymore. Pretty sure my life is worse than yours at this point. I mean, it is Steven, not to invalidate Steven's own issues, but Wrigley ends up making it kind of humorous anyway because he's like, oh, how does it feel? It must be so hard not being able to be rude to me right now. Because he kind of told him off. But then, I mean, he shrugs it off and he laughs and he says, oh, you'll find someone else to take it out on. Which is true, and I wish we weren't making a joke out of it. But at least he's calling him out. That's all I can ask for, at least. Bree and Lucy are together. Lucy keeps saying how weird it was that she was with Alex and that she shouldn't have because her and Bree, or because him and Bree, grew up together. I think this is just Lucy's guilt about the Evan stuff coming out, because it's not that weird. She's just making it extra weird. Is that just me who thought that? Lucy brings up how she loved hearing about little bossy Bree. And they have this interesting conversation. Well, not really conversation, it's just a few sentences. It's very brief. But Bree asks Lucy if she had a good sense of who she was as a child, and Lucy says, well, mainly because we had home videos. And it just gets you thinking about how Bree, as a foster child, didn't really have home videos. And I mean, that just all adds to, I think, a lot of the sadness that we feel for Bree in this season, and it compounds when you think about it. It helps us understand how guilty Lucy feels, because it makes it feel like what she did was even worse. And then a terrifying thing happens. Bree's phone starts buzzing. Guess who it is? It's Steven calling her. Of course, Lucy starts freaking out. She's trying to make something up, saying, oh, he's probably just, all upset about the breakup and wants to vent to you or rant to you. And of course, Bree is like, why would he vent to me? It's terrifying. So she just has Bree promise that she won't pick up, and Lucy runs out the door and heads straight to Steven. So when she gets there, Lucy asks, why are you calling Bree? And he just so plainly, flat out says, oh, because I decided to tell Bree about you and Evan. I mean, he doesn't say it in those words. He says it in a little bit more of a crass way. But, yeah. Lucy is trying to convince him not to do it. She says this is going to ruin things with you and Evan. Steven says he doesn't care about him and Evan. Do you think that's true? I mean, I do think it's somewhat true. He doesn't, deep down, he doesn't care about anyone but himself. But also, doesn't he feel, I think he must feel somewhat lonely. I think he likes Wrigley and Evan because he knows he can do whatever he wants and they'll just keep coming back. I think he does appreciate their friendship to a certain extent, even though he kind of can't feel emotions. Lucy keeps going, and I hate when Stephen says, don't beg to Lucy. Like, doesn't he love that she's begging? I think it's him kind of just demeaning her. He, when she's begging, he's looking at her like, oh, you're so pathetic. He just sees her as so pathetic. Lucy starts saying, I still love you, and Stephen's like, you're embarrassing yourself. You can just tell in his eyes he does not believe a thing Lucy's saying, that he knows this is totally Lucy and her self-preservation and her caring about Bree, and that it has nothing to do with her actually, quote-unquote, loving him. Such a scary line. Lucy says, why are you doing this? And he says, because I want to hurt you and I don't know how else to do it. Like, the way he's not even trying to hide his intentions. There was something so icy and scary about it. Lucy takes a little breather. I feel like we as the audience get a little breather too in that moment. And then she goes, what about Macy? Stephen says, who? Who? What are you, an owl? That was such a sick moment. This man is disturbed. He says, are you talking about your roommate, the one who crashed the car? Has he distanced himself that much psychologically? Like, I guess that's what's happening, is that he literally has distanced himself psychologically, and that's how he's surviving, which only, I think, like, a mentally unwell person can possibly do that. Stephen kind of just lets Lucy talk about this and tries to prove his own point in letting her just ramble and say, I will tell them about the car you drove. And Stephen says, oh, I didn't have a car. I'll tell them about the flower you drew for her. And he says, oh, do you hear yourself? You sound crazy. Essentially saying to her that you can tell the story all you want, but you look crazy already. And you're going to look crazy telling the story, and no one will believe you. And Stephen hits her with the kicker. He says, you don't love me. You just are terrified of your friends finding out who you really are. That just breaks Lucy because, yes, that's kind of true. He has so seriously broken her down psychologically that at this point she starts begging for him to use anything else but this to hurt her. Like, begging for him to find something to use. She offers up telling everyone that she wrote the letter, and he's like, no one cares about that anymore, which I guess is kind of true. Then she starts saying you can make something up, but Stephen's smart. He says, you told me yourself there is nothing you have done that's as bad as what I've done. And he takes out his phone again to call Bree. And that's when Lucy says, I lied about being sexually assaulted. I could not believe that she brought this up. I cannot believe that this is happening. Stephen is satisfied. He closes his phone. He says, that is pretty bad. Lucy offers up that he can tell everyone about it. But he says, oh, no, I'm your ex-boyfriend. Like, no one would believe that. People could think that I'm lying and making it up. And then he looks up with those Stephen eyes and he says, you should tell everyone you lied. He starts saying that she needs to tell not just a handful of people, but everyone. And this just is slowly becoming one of the most terrifying scenes in the whole show. That says something. Stephen says, I think you should put it on tape. And he goes and he gets a camera from his drawer. Stephen gives her the ultimatum. And of course she says, I can't do that. So immediately Stephen pulls out his phone, calls Bree. It goes to voicemail. And he starts leaving her a voicemail. I mean, all he gets to say is, hey, Bree, it's Stephen, before Lucy comes over and shuts his phone. Side note, doesn't that still send the voicemail? Is that just more modern phones? But doesn't that still send a voicemail? Because all I kept thinking was, isn't Bree still going to hear that? But I guess she doesn't. But clearly, Stephen is threatening that he is ready and able and willing to tell Bree. Of course, Lucy asks, before doing this, how do I know that you're not going to tell Bree anyway? Because that's true. I feel like Stephen's done that kind of thing before. And he replies, you don't really, but you don't have any other choice anyway. Oh my gosh. So scary. He just keeps breaking her down. She says, if people see this, if we do this, everyone's going to hate me. And Stephen says, I think deep down you know you deserve that. Like, he just knows exactly how to make people... I mean, he's manipulating her. I think by making her feel so awful, making her think that it's kind of her choice in a way. Or not her choice, that it's her idea, that she should be doing this anyway. Because she's such a quote-unquote awful person. He tells her to sit on the bed, and they start. Throughout this whole thing, I felt so icky. There is something so deeply disturbing and disgusting about it. It's like this coercion that I think we don't really see a lot in TV and movies. It's this coercion. I mean, he stages it. He tells her to scoot over to the right, and then she starts speaking, and he'll be like, no, do it like this. Like he's directing it. Before they begin recording, though, he says, all this for Bree. And Lucy says, I can't hurt her. And Stephen just looks so disappointed, is maybe the word. It's so weird. It's so uncomfortable. He's so upset that she wants to continue to be friends with Bree. I mean, deep down, it's because of the Bree and Evan stuff, and it's just about his own ego. That's what it is. But his reaction it's so strange. And then when they start filming, the way that he keeps cutting and saying, no, you need to do it like this. You need to say this. No, it's not as impactful if you say this word. You need to say this word. Like, he's just making sure that it's the most damaging that it could possibly be for Lucy. It really is difficult and upsetting to watch. Because it feels like a kind of assault in its own way. They finish. We don't get to see what Lucy fully said. Which is scary to us as the viewers, too, because I'm just wondering, what did she possibly say? When will this come out? How is what she said going to impact her? Because we don't know the full thing. All we see is Stephen putting his camera away. Or not putting away, but he's looking at that memory card that holds this video. Also, another thought I had, I don't think this happens, but he took so many different takes. I was wondering, is he going to be able to somehow stitch the different clips together and manipulate what she said? And make it look like she says something else, too? They had iMovie back then, did they not? Lucy asks, what are you going to do with it? And of course, cryptic Stephen says, maybe nothing. Or maybe I'll email it to the entire student body tonight. Because he knows that keeping her in this limbo is what's most painful of all. He's torturing her. He's torturing her with the anticipation. And of course, this is what Stephen thrives on. This is his currency, is blackmail. And this is the most incredible blackmail. Because he even says, I could email it maybe next week or next year. You know, he's just dangling it over her head. He could do this whenever, for the rest of her life. Oh my gosh, one of the sickest Stephen lines is, he then says, it's comforting to know that I have it. You really just you gotta let that sit with you, you know. It's comforting for him to know that he has it. It's comforting. How did you interpret that? I think Stephen just feels weak when he doesn't have something to hold over other people. He wants that power of being able to blackmail others and have these secrets because that's how he maintains his relationship and feels in control and is able to feed his ego. Let me know what you thought about this. And I mean, that's how this scene ends. Lucy just leaves in silence. I'd love to hear some of your thoughts and analysis on this whole scene below. Then we get Bree. She's in the coffee shop, and Amanda comes in. So obviously Amanda starts chatting with Bree. Bree already seems like a little bit off and uncomfortable. But then Amanda brings up the professor, the guy that she's been seeing, and how he's been kind of grumpy in a bad mood because of winter. Bree kind of snaps. She says, look, I don't want to hear about him. I think what you're doing is really wrong. She keeps going. She says, it's not something you should be telling other people about, and it's gross. Amanda looks really upset. Bree walks away. This was an interesting moment. I think it was somewhat Bree talking to herself. I think on one hand, it's Bree talking to herself because she's not really guilty. She feels shame about what happened because of her now thinking that she's perceived as weak. You know how she was saying that she sees Amanda as this kind of weak, little, naive, insecure girl, and she's wondering if that's why Oliver chose her. So I think part of it is that, projecting onto Amanda, and also kind of being jealous. It seems like there could be a hint of that. Because you know what Bree does next? She finds that selfie she took with Amanda, and she texts it to Oliver. I mean, I think it's a mix of things. I think it's partially her saying to Oliver, like, back off. I know what you're doing. I see you. Like, you can't do this again. And also trying to get a bit of a rise out of him, maybe? Like, get in contact with him? How did you interpret that? It was weird. I mean, poor Amanda. Kind of not poor Amanda, because what is she doing talking about all this stuff? But she looked so distraught. She looked so confused. Oh my gosh, I actually can barely even talk about this next scene because it pisses me off so much. Evan's in his apartment. Steven walks in. Evan's like, how you been? Because remember, he was all concerned because Steven kind of disappeared. Steven explains that Sadie might be losing her scholarship. And what does Evan do? What does Evan do here? He suggests that his father, his family, can pay for it, can pay her tuition. This was so strange. Like, when Steven says how much it is, Evan says, oh, that's not a problem. That's, like, not that much for him. That it's kind of easy for his family. And with a big smile, he says, I got you. Why is Evan being so nice? Like, yes, he wants the beef with him and Steven to be over, but he played right into Steven's hands. Like, Steven so clearly set that up to be a pity-me moment, saying, oh, Sadie doesn't have enough money, knowing that Evan is very wealthy. And Evan played right into it. Like, do you really think that's going to satisfy Steven? I mean, okay, it will satisfy him because he doesn't really care about his male friendships. You know, like if Lucy were to do something, like I don't think he would really care. He would still be upset about what happened and not want to be dating her. With friends, it's a little bit different. He doesn't see them on the same kind of level, I think. But also, Evan is so stupid because even if you do this now, Steven still has this secret, this thing to hold over you. Like, how do you know this isn't going to stop him from doing something? Because also Lucy's involved. I mean, okay, Evan does say, but we're good now, is a question. And Steven replies, yeah, we're good. So, I mean, I guess that is his way of making sure that their friendship is intact, that they're no longer fighting about this thing, that Steven's okay. But you just can't trust him. Also, then Evan asks for his keys back, which he should have done a long time ago. You really let Steven have access to your apartment for this long? That relationship, I mean, the relationship he has to both him and Wrigley is so strange to me. But anyway, we'll see how this pans out. Then we cut to Diana. She looks nervous. And what do you know? She looks at a pregnancy test, and turns out she is, in fact, pregnant. I mean, that sucks, because that means you are carrying, like, the devil's spawn. I don't even know what to say. I don't even have words. Like, I'm sorry, this is such an argument for being pro-choice, because that man should not procreate. I'm sorry. We snap to Lucy in the shower, looking terrified. Then it seems like she gets some kind of moment of realization. Next thing we know, she is storming down a hallway. Her hair is still damp. And guess who she's going over to? It's Alex. He opens the door. He lets her in. She comes in. She says, it's fine if you think I'm pathetic. He's like, I don't know you. And then they start making out. I think Lucy is just so deep in her self-hatred. She has reached kind of a low in terms of that. So they start hooking up. She puts his hand on her neck. Remember with Leo, when he got freaked out by that, and she has felt a lot of shame around it, thinking that she's not a good person, that something's wrong with her. And Alex plays into it. He doesn't stop. She tells Alex to tell her how pathetic she is. And it's hard to watch. I mean, I think it's like a form of this is a form of self-harm for Lucy. And at the same time that we're watching this happen, we're getting interspliced clips of the confession tape. And, okay, I was wrong earlier. We do get to hear this tape. Lucy goes on and she says that she did this all for attention and she just wanted people to feel bad for her. Like, what a script from Steven. She has Alex start telling her that she's nothing. And all the while, we have Test Slate by Alt J playing. Really interesting song choice. It just, like, I literally get chills rewatching it because the way that they cut it with both her and Alex and the tape playing and her just, the way she looks in that tape, I mean, again, fantastic acting from Grace Van Patten, but it's disturbing. Like, you can just see so much in her eyes and the pain. I mean, something that I was thinking about was like, when people see this video, if people see this video, knock on wood, it looks like she has a gun to her head and someone's making her film this. Doesn't it? I mean, hopefully someone would be able to understand that, but also, I guess it could just look like she's really, really upset about this lie. I don't know. It just, to me, seems like it does feel like she's being forced, but maybe that's just because that's what we know behind the scenes. But yeah, then the episode ends and I was like, what an emotionally draining episode. I've been following Megan Oppenheimer and she said that this was going to be, a really upsetting season of television. And I mean, she wasn't wrong. It's just unlike, I think why we come back is because it's unlike anything we've seen before. I truly ended this episode on the edge of my seat, wondering what's possibly going to happen next. Also, like, really, really stressed. Like, my blood pressure, whatever, heart rate is definitely really high. I should wear my Fitbit during this. That's why I can never watch the show right before bed, because I actually will stay up. But what did you think about this episode? Let's discuss. Like, I want to hear some of your analyses about the way that certain characters were acting and reacting. Because sometimes they were perplexing, and I'm trying to understand them from multiple angles, but I want to hear what you thought. I wrote down some notes while I was watching. One thing I was thinking was, well, this is what I wrote. I said, if only Lucy could go to Evan and get him to stop Steven. I think I was wondering, when Steven was threatening to tell Bree, I was hoping that somehow Lucy could go to Evan and say, like, look, Steven is threatening me right now, that he's going to tell Bree. I know you don't want that to happen, because I know that Evan does not want that to happen. He wants Bree. I don't know how that would actually pan out, but, and obviously, like, Steven was able to corner Lucy and make it urgent. So she didn't have time to even think about that kind of thing. But I was like, I wish that somehow in this time Lucy could have said to Evan, like, Steven is threatening me. Would Evan even do anything? I don't know. I mean, I think he wants Bree back, so what do you think would happen? And then another thing I thought was, I wrote down, she needs to record him back, blackmail him. I wanted Lucy. Again, she wasn't in a clear headspace. She wasn't really, like, thinking things through fully. But I wanted her in that moment to be recording Steven saying, I want to get a recording of you saying this, this, and this. I wanted her to secretly be recording Steven so that if he did, like, that video, she could say, he made me do this. He made me do this. I mean, only issue with that is that we do have multiple people who believe that Lucy was actually assaulted. So that wouldn't make complete sense, but some sense. That's just what I was hoping. I cannot wait to discuss episode 4 with you because I know it's an interesting one. So yeah, if you are enjoying these, please let me know below and please leave a comment, anything. I feel like we had a lot of viewers in a whole community last season, but I know there's a lot more viewers this season, so maybe not everyone's coming over here, but if you enjoy, please let me know because I love it and I love you guys and I want to have these discussions with you. So that is all. Talk to you next time. Bye.